Welcome back to the Michael Cohen Show on our continued journey to 250,000 subscribers. We are so close with like less than 4,000 needed. So do me a favor, hit subscribe, watch, share, because every single day there's going to be something to talk about, unfortunately. And with 4 days left until the inauguration, tensions are somewhat high. Expected, right? So yesterday at around 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, President Biden announced that there was going to be a ceasefire deal reached between Israel and Hamas. Now, Trump was very quick to go and to take credit for the hostage deal, as of course it would validate his claim that he could have a deal reached before he even took office. Now, me personally, I don't really care as long as that a deal was made, that the hostages are released, but this deal is not as let's just say as it's being sold. Let's look over the evidence here. All right. Here, Biden announced that the deal was done. Play the clip.
And the Secretary of State. Let's listen.
Good afternoon. It's a very good afternoon. Because at long last, I can announce a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas.
Yeah. So again, that's President Biden, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from the White House talking about how the deal was reached. And again, immediately thereafter, Trump, of course, took to Truth Social and to other media, taking credit for it. Now, President Biden explained that this deal was reached under his administration, but put a caveat that the next administration would have to enforce it. Play the clip.
I'd also note this deal was developed and negotiated under my administration, but its terms will be implemented for the most part by the next administration. In these past few days, we've been speaking as one team. This has been time of real turmoil in the Middle East. But as I prepare to leave office, our friends are strong, our enemies are weak, and there's a genuine opportunities for a new future.
You know, you have to listen to sometimes Biden's specific words that combined this deal was reached. What he's referring to there is that the Biden administration has been very, very open to allowing Trump's new incoming administration, people like Steve Witkoff, who's part of the envoy to the Middle East, someone who I've known for over 20 plus years. He was part of this historic deal. So in essence, I guess both sides could be right at the same time. But here's what Biden ended up doing, explaining exactly why under his administration that the deal passed, but the next administration will have to administer it because it's going to be done in phases. The ceasefire will take place under 3 different phases. Play the clip.
The elements of this deal were what I laid out in detail this past May, which was embraced by countries around the world and endorsed overwhelmingly by the UN Security Council. The deal is structured in 3 phases. Phase 1 will last 6 weeks. It includes a full and complete ceasefire, withdrawal of Israeli forces from all the populated areas of Gaza, and the release of a number of hostages held by Hamas, including women and elderly and the wounded. And I'm proud to say Americans will be part of that hostage release in phase 1 as well. And the Vice President and I cannot wait to welcome them home. In exchange, Israel released hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. And during phase 1, the Palestinians can also return to their neighborhoods in all the areas of Gaza. And the surge of humanitarian assistance into Gaza will begin. And the innocent people can have a greater access to these vital supplies. You know, during the next 6 weeks, Israel will negotiate the necessary arrangements to get phase 2, which is a permanent end of the war. Let me say it again, a permanent end of the war. There are a number of details to negotiate to move from phase 1 to phase 2, but the plan says if negotiations take longer than 6 weeks, the ceasefire will continue.
Again, there's so much to this ceasefire deal that we don't know. But over the course of the day, since 2 p.m. yesterday, when Biden was making these statements, we've learned certain things. We've learned that it's going to be 33 hostages released. Now, they also don't say whether those hostages, some or all, are alive or deceased. And in exchange, hundreds of Palestinians are going to be released from capture by the Israelis and returned home. 6 weeks of a ceasefire. All I can say is that there will still be remaining, as of today, there's something like 100 hostages still held by Hamas, meaning that there'll still be something like 67 hostages remaining. And we still can't find out whether or not they're alive or that they're deceased. This is terrible. I mean, I could not be happier for the families of these 33 that are being released, live or deceased, because at least there's closure. But I got to be honest with you. My big concern is that with phase 2, as President Biden said, if 6 weeks transpire and they're not able to now move to phase 2, the ceasefire will continue. Well, I'm not 100% certain that this is going to end up being what it's being touted as. And that's sad because it's exactly what the world needs. Now, they went on and they asked President Biden how much credit that Trump should get for the deal. Again, in stark contrast to many of the claims that were coming out of the Trump camp. Play the clip.
Gaza now, as you were saying, the implementation of this deal will be in the hands of the next administration, and basically they will shape the future of Gaza. So how do you see this future? And also, how much credit do you give to the Trump team for this deal? Trump is already taking credit for it.
Well, you know, this is the exact framework of the deal I proposed back in May. Exact. And we got the world to endorse it. Secondly, it's America's support for Israel that helped them badly weaken Hamas and its backers and create the conditions for this deal. And thirdly, I knew this deal would have to be implemented by the next team, so I told my team to coordinate closely with the incoming team to make sure we're all speaking with the same voice, because that's what American presidents do.
Yeah. Again, very measured and very presidential. But as President Biden was leaving the speech, someone had yelled out to him, "Who gets the credit? Mr. President, who gets the credit? Play the clip."
Thank you.
Who gets credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke? Oh, thank you.
Nasty. Just plain. Again, how about share the credit? Who cares? Do you really think that the families of the hostages being returned care as to whether it was done because 100% of Joe Biden, 50% of Joe Biden, 50% of Donald Trump, or 100% of Donald Trump? The answer is no. It is the United States of America. It is not an individual that is responsible for the ceasefire. It is the United States of America. Now, before Biden's speech, Trump, of course, took to Truth Social and he posted these two things. Put the first one up. "We have a deal for the hostages in the Middle East. They will be released shortly. Thank you." Put the second one up. "This epic ceasefire agreement could have only happened as a result of our historic victory in November, as it signaled to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans and our allies. I am thrilled American and Israeli hostages will be returning home to be reunited with their families and loved one." I feel the same way. With this deal in place, my national security team, through the efforts of Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, will continue to work closely with Israel and our allies to make sure Gaza never again becomes a terrorist safe haven. We will continue promoting peace through strength throughout the region as we build upon the momentum of the ceasefire to further expand the historic Abraham Accords. This is only the beginning of great things to come for America and indeed the world. We have achieved so much without even being in the White House. Just imagine all the wonderful things that will happen when I return to the White House and my administration is fully confirmed so they can secure more victories for the United States. Well, obviously, we know who's taking credit in Trump's mind for the ceasefire and the return of the hostages. Now, I do want to say this. There is something called the Logan Act, and we've talked about this in the past, which says that citizens of America cannot interact and they cannot be involved in, international relations or things that the government of the United States is handling. My thoughts when I first read it is, well, at this present moment, despite it being 4 days before the inauguration, and while President-elect is still nothing more than president-elect, he is considered still just a citizen, not the president of the United States. So based upon those, would he or would he not? If you really want to read the literal definition of the Logan Act, would he or would he not be in violation of it? I don't know. Then, of course, during Biden's farewell address last night, took place at 8 p.m., again, Eastern Standard Time, he started his speech by talking about the ceasefire deal and emphasizing that it was his administration that reached the deal. Play the clip.
I'm speaking to you tonight from the Oval Office. Before I begin, let me speak to important news from earlier today. After 8 months of nonstop negotiation, my administration, a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached by Israel and Hamas.
You know how stupid that we look? Two individuals fighting over who's responsible, who succeeded in this long overdue deal in order to release hostages, some of whom are American Israelis. Because in the end, all that really matters is that a deal has been reached and that these families are reunited with their loved ones and that those that are no longer alive are able to be buried and there could be some closure to the family so that they stop wondering what's happening with their loved ones. I mean, even Trump supporters like Malik Abdul recognize that this deal happened under Joe Biden's watch. Why not just take it as an American victory instead of an individual victory? I don't know. Play the clip.
American army and the American military behind them in today's world, because
that's just not what happened
Right.
here.
Look,
what happened here is that
hold on, Josh.
I support Donald Trump. I voted for him 3 times. This credit goes to Joe Biden. Joe Biden
Not
is
100%.
the president.
That's not fair.
It's we don't have to get into numbers. The fact is that I've seen under various presidents the credit go to another president. No one wants to give the other one in power or in the administration. They don't want to give him credit. Joe Biden is president of the United States. This happened under Joe Biden's watch. He deserves a lot of credit. It doesn't mean that Donald Trump, his people, he's very unpredictable. It does not mean that
That's
that
good.
did not play a role.
But I think
But
this
we
is
don't
candy.
know. And I will say that we don't know and maybe it will come out at some point, Donald Trump's actual substantive role. We know what he said, but his substantive role, we don't know that right now.
We will
And
know.
Yeah. Again, I feel the same as Malik in this case. I don't particularly care. And if down the road somewhere history is going to have to create some sort of percentage of involvement in the success, again, as long as a deal has been reached, as long as some peace in the Middle East can take place. It's what I'm thinking about. And as always, thanks for listening. Hey, everyone. First of all, thanks for watching. I mean, we're going to be posting daily episodes with reactions and talking about politics. We'll be talking about everything, in fact. So please like and subscribe. Join us on this journey.